On May 24, 2013, Sheriff Joe Arpaio and his deputies were found guilty of racial profiling and destroying evidence. On June 14th, Judge Snow held a hearing at the Sandra Day O'Connor U.S. Courthouse in Phoenix. Attorneys for both sides were invited to work on an agreement that would ensure no future violations.
When someone would call our hotline and say, I'm a victim of racial profiling and I'm going to stand up and assert my rights and I'm going to share this story, this is why we have this victory, because brave individuals like you, brave individuals like everybody that came up and stepped up to the plate and said, I am not going to let myself be a victim of racial profiling. I know what my rights are, and this is going to stop right here. And this is exactly what we did. Congratulations to all of you.
We are not illegals. We are not criminals. We are descendants and workers of original peoples of this continent. We want that to be very clear. We're fighting against Arpaio because he is actually committing atrocities against the original peoples of this continent. We have to be very clear. We are not invaders into this country. We have been here thousands and thousands of years, and that gets lost many times. That can never be lost in our perspective. We cannot lose it just to appease the beast. We cannot appease the beast because the beast will never be appeased until we confront it.
I'm here because I have been personally affected by the policies of Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Personally, through my father, who was arrested and had a very frustrating process going through immigration, going through local jails, not knowing where he is, and sick as well. And it's been terrible going through this, and this Father's Day also reminds me of what is happening, but I'm here because I'm hopeful.
On August 30th, as was expected, Arpaio's refusal to voluntarily make needed changes resulted in Judge Snow's having to make the final decision on how to proceed. Snow is expected to decide within the next 60 days.
This is going to be a long fight. Every single word, every single little action, anything that the monitor objects to, there has to be an agreement between the parties that X or Y can be done. And if they can't have an agreement, then ultimately the court will have the authority. So right now the court's just going through some very fine details of that proposed order and where the parties agree or disagree and allowing them to give their position on the matter. But he hasn't covered thus far the other parts that are extremely important is what engagement will the community have as a part of this order that he's going to put together, and what consequences there are to deputies who violate rules and policies that are being imposed by this order.
One thing that became clear, both in the papers that the sheriff submitted and in court today, is that the sheriff still doesn't get it. He is being recalcitrant on some key issues where the MCSO needs to change in a fundamental way. His opposition to having a monitor at all, his opposition to having clear policies that prevent the kind of pretextual stops of Latinos that we've seen in this county, is a sign that a real deep and thorough cleaning needs to happen in that house. And it's going to happen because as piggish and bullheaded as the sheriff is and has been, the United States court is going to prevail in mandating some reforms.
The parties are going to have a period of time to consider and nominate possible monitors, and then the judge will pick one of those people to be the monitor in the case.
Has the judge suggested someone's background, the type of person that he wants to see here?
Not in particular, other than that the person who's the monitor should have some experience and knowledge of law enforcement.
Will this monitor encompass all of Arpaio's activities, like say the worksite raids, or will this just be specific to traffic stops?
The order is mostly aimed at the traffic stops that were the subject of the lawsuit. So a lot of the data that's collected will be about traffic stops in particular. There are probably other provisions that more generally affect the sheriff overall in terms of training. For example, there's training on bias-free policing, and those training provisions will probably also affect other things besides traffic, but they certainly include traffic.
Will the order be enforced during the period of appeal?
There's already an injunction in place against the use of race, against continuation of the Lear policy that the sheriff had before. Those injunctions are in force now, and there's been no effort to stay that, so that will continue in place during the course of the appeal. Once the judge issues his final order, which is what we were talking about today, it will be in place unless there is some stay of that order, and we don't. At this point, we would hope and expect that it would continue in force pending appeal.
What Arpaio has done, it's not simply his abuses that you are now well aware of, but by lowering the standard of this community, he invites every other police agency to mimic him. By becoming the most popular figure in the state, by being a loud-mouthed, boastful bully, he invites every other police chief to choose the same behavior. And so it becomes a infectious disease, this business of hate and of hating Latinos in this state. The restraint that will come about simply by the announcement that happened a month ago, and again, the public understanding of the consequences today, and finally the order, is not limited to the sheriff's office. It will bring fear to the city of Phoenix and the city of Scottsdale and the city of Mesa. And it gives us the tool with which to roll that court order up and go bang it on the mayor's head and demand change here as well.
Unless we're willing to step up to be plaintiffs in lawsuits, none of this can happen. None of it. And so don't ever forget that we continue to be under the gun, we continue to be under scrutiny. Discrimination, this may be a part of the remedy, but discrimination will continue. And it'll continue in a lot of places. It is happening today in the city of Phoenix more so than it's ever happened before. We have to go there next. We absolutely have to go there next. But it takes people to be on alert, to make sure they get that badge number, to make sure they get that serial number, to make sure they write down the facts about what happened, so that when Lydia or Mary Rose or any of those come forward, do we have plaintiffs? We have them, and we're able to move forward. So to those people and to those that we'll need in the future, keep up the good work. Thank you.
Along with the suit, I think we need to get everybody on the same page and then really pushing other demands. With the atrocities, with the things that were found with this suit, there's no reason why Obama should continue to work with Arpaio. The same suit does the same thing in 1070. The 1070 does the exact same things that Arpaio has been doing, and I wish that connection could have been made better. So I think we have a lot of work to do. I thank you for your work, but I'm really interested in continuing the conversation of how we're going to use these results to continue to make changes in policy, not just with Arpaio, and everybody said it, but with the city of Phoenix and everyone else who's continuing the work of Arpaio. So with that, hand it over to you.
Racial discrimination and racial profiling is institutionalized in this state since its formation. That goes with all the 50 states as well as the old story. The reason I bring it up is because this is the thought that Gustavo would have had too, I believe, in my sense of it. And understanding the context of it from Martin Luther King, Selma. After Selma, he said, we have emerged from the era of civil rights to the era of human rights. He said that in 67, and in 68 they killed him. He also was talking to Malcolm X at the time and saying, Malcolm, we got to take the U.S. government to the United Nations World Court for the collective violations of human rights of the African American peoples, not just within the context of the U.S. government, but at the international level. With human rights or international rights, they come from the Charter, Universal Charter of Human Rights, including Article 23, which is that everyone has the right to work. That right doesn't come from Obama, it doesn't come from the U.S. Constitution. Those are extra constitutional rights. Those are human rights, they're inherent. And our movement is a human rights movement. Civil rights to human rights, as Martin Luther King says. But then when we invited the folks to come in, and they came, the Freedom Summer folks, they came. We had the same conversation, and we understood that the civil rights movement in the United States that was led by the African American leadership, such as Martin Luther King, also was contextualized by the global movement of all peoples for self-determination and the fight to emerge from the era of colonization. And that is the fight that the indigenous people struggle for still in Arizona, still in this territory, and throughout the world. And with our hearts in our hands, and also with our memories intact, we also are honored, privileged, and committed to follow through on this generational struggle to realize our common humanity. Thank you.